Welcome back. Today, we're going to dig into something really fundamental, something that touches on how we form our sense of self, how we connect with others.
Yeah, we're looking at the impact when a parent's presence isn't just, well, sometimes absent, but when it's unpredictable.
Exactly. Unpredictable, conditional, available really only on their own terms. It's a very specific dynamic.
And it really shapes a child's inner world, doesn't it? It creates this constant state of trying to navigate the relationship, often leading to some profound unmet needs down the line.
Right. So what we want to do is unpack what that looks like from the child's viewpoint, understand the internal toll, and sort of trace how those patterns might play out later in life. Really get to the heart of it.
Okay, so let's start with that core idea. A parent who's only around for a little while.
Yeah, fleeting. And the key thing is they pull back, they withdraw that presence. The second the child expresses something the parent just doesn't want to deal with.
Doesn't want to tolerate, yeah. Whether it's feelings, needs, anything inconvenient.
And while we might think of a specific example like a father-daughter thing, this pattern can happen with any parent, right?
Absolutely. The core mechanism is that it's all only on his terms as suits him or not at all.
No room for the child's needs in that equation. It's entirely dictated by the parent's comfort zone.
Which, well, forces the child into an incredibly difficult position. They learn very quickly they must completely adapt.
Adapt to whatever that parent can handle in that moment. And it's not just like being quiet. It's deeper.
Oh, much deeper. It means giving up what they actually want to say or suggest or do.
Things they're interested in. Activities they might need help with.
All of it, potentially. Topics, ideas, their own interests sometimes have to go silent. And, crucially, they learn they absolutely cannot express dissatisfaction.
Or anger.
Or anger, definitely, about how they're being treated, about the unfairness of it all.
And there's a really painful reason behind that suppression, isn't there?
Yes, because that time with the parent feels so incredibly important, so vital, especially because it's so rare and uncertain.
So the child, they silence themselves.
Again and again, they silence the sadness, the despair, the disappointment, all that bitterness, because they feel they can't waste that tiny, precious time slot on complaints.
Wow. Waste the time slot. That phrasing really hits home. It shows the desperation.
It does. You have this small chance for connection, and instead of being fully yourself, you edit yourself just to keep it going.
And that tactic isn't just used on the child, is it? Sometimes partners or others hear the same thing. Don't waste our time with negativity.
Exactly. It's a way to maintain control, to keep the focus on the parent's needs and comfort.
So the overall effect on the child is, well, they have to give themselves up.
That's the stark reality of it. Must give up herself. To even get that little bit of time, they're constantly scanning the parent.
Like a radar.
Kind of, yeah. Constantly observe the father, constantly estimate and guess what kind of mood he is in, what he feels like, what he's in the mood for.
How much they can allow themselves. Just trying to figure out the rules and engagement for that moment.
All that work, all that exhausting calculation, just to spend a little time with them and, critically, to avoid being pushed away or abandoned the moment things get even slightly inconvenient for the parent.
That constant vigilance.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense why they'd have to adapt externally. But what's happening inside the child during all this?
Yeah.
It might look like respect from the outside, maybe.
That's what's so misleading. It can look like respect or maybe even awe. But underneath, it's described as complete subordination.
Subordination, not respect.
No, and it's layered with suppressed despair. So even when they're physically with the parent, they're not really feeling connected or safe.
They're somewhere else emotionally.
Pretty much. They're often flooded with other feeling, a sadness, maybe anger from past abandonments, the anxiety that this connection will end soon.
And even while they're with the parent, they're already feeling that longing for something more, something they're not getting.
Exactly. That feeling of being present but not receiving, it leads to this pervasive sense of lack of a sense of security.
An internal lack, just L-A-C-K, capital letters, lack of what they need.
Yeah. The description is blunt. They cannot be satiated, calmed, needs satisfied in that dynamic because fundamentally such a parent does not care for the daughter in the ways that matter for development.
They don't respond to her needs.
No, they don't give her what she needs to grow emotionally. So the relationship doesn't bring joy, it doesn't nourish, it doesn't energize or fulfill.
It's all about the parent.
Totally. He is big and in the center of this relationship. The child, by accepting these terms, is just hoping to maybe catch some scraps.
Whatever the parent feels like giving.
As much as he wants. when he wants. It's completely on his whim.
That image, catching scraps, is just devastating. It really captures that feeling of powerlessness.
It does. And there's this detail about how a child might try to cope by being extra sweet, compliant, always giving compliments.
Try to be the perfect, easy child.
Exactly. Trying desperately to fit into those narrow conditions. And the really painful part, sometimes the parent ends up respecting them even less for it.
Wow. So even meeting the terms doesn't guarantee genuine connection or respect. It can backfire.
Yeah, it shows how deeply dysfunctional the dynamic is. So, given all this, the conditional connection, the self-suppression, the unmet needs we have to ask.
What happens next? How does this play out in adulthood?
Right. What kind of relationships is someone likely to enter into with that background?
You can almost feel the weight of that question. The patterns feel like they're just waiting to repeat.
They often do. What's described as this intense hunger and desperation in seeking a partner.
Not a calm search, then. More like trying to fill a void.
Exactly. Driven by that deep childhood lack. And because of that, how much say will they likely feel they have in the relationship?
Probably very little, if they learned their voice doesn't matter or is risky to use.
Precisely. Which connects to how much they'll be willing to do to keep the relationship going, and maybe more importantly, how much they'll tolerate from a partner.
Tolerating poor treatment, perhaps. Unequal dynamics.
Yeah.
Because that feels familiar.
That's the implication. The patterns of subordination, of putting their own needs last, of sacrificing themselves to maintain connection. Those patterns learned in childhood can lead them to accept similar dynamics in adult partnerships.
And how will they feel in those relationships?
Likely not great. Often they replicate that same feeling of lack, of not being truly seen or nourished, the same pain experienced way back when. The self-sacrifice continues, trying to earn inconsistent connection.
It's a difficult picture.
Yeah.
But there's a way out, right? There's insight here about breaking these cycles.
Yes, absolutely. The key insight offered is that if you're struggling with these patterns in relationships, it's so important to meet with those disappointed, sad, despairing, and furious little us.
Connect with the younger self, the one who went through all that.
Exactly. Acknowledge those parts of you that had to bury their feelings to cope with that conditional love. Because those child parts, they really have their reasons for feeling that way.
The sadness, the despair, the anger, it was all justified.
Absolutely. It came from real experiences of lack, unpredictability, unfairness, having to give up essential parts of themselves.
And sometimes those parts have been waiting a long, long time inside us.
Decades often, waiting for us to even remember them, to find them within ourselves, to finally allow ourselves to feel those emotions in our bodies.
Feeling the old sadness, the anger, maybe for the first time as an adult.
Yes, and the path forward involves letting ourselves finally vent what is bursting out of us.
Not to get stuck there, but to release it.
To release it, to give it voice. It's suggested that this process, acknowledging, feeling, expressing, is what allows us to finally leave that constricting, enslaving, and addictive relationship pattern.
And that's not just about the original parent, is it? It's about any relationship where we fall back into, depending on someone else's moods, fits, and any whims.
Exactly. It frees us from repeating that dynamic.
So this isn't about blaming, really. It's about understanding the roots of why we might struggle now. Recognizing how those early experiences shaped us.
Understanding the unmet needs, the self-abandonment that maybe felt necessary back then. Processing that pain empowers us to choose differently now.
To build relationships based on something more solid than conditional scraps.
Precisely. So pulling it all together, what we've explored shows how that inconsistent conditional presence in childhood creates these deep needs and patterns of self-silencing that echo powerfully in adult life.
And recognizing those suppressed feelings of the inner child, the sad, angry, despairing parts, is presented as really crucial for healing and breaking free.
That connection to our past selves, understanding their reasons, is key to changing the present.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you, our listeners, to maybe mull over building on this.
Mm-hmm.
If adapting and silencing yourself felt like the only strategy you had to get any love or attention growing up, how do you even start to figure out what you genuinely want or need now, completely separate from anyone else's terms or expectations?
That's a huge question. Learning to identify your own authentic needs after a lifetime of suppressing them.
It really gets to the heart of the healing journey described here. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into these complex but hopefully clarifying ideas.
Yes, thank you. Reflecting on this can be challenging, for sure, but acknowledging these dynamics is often where real change begins.